Hello, for today's assignment, we're going to be drafting a business letter. This is just going to be a simple letter, one page for this assignment, but let's go ahead and talk about the different categories and different elements that our letter must contain. So with a business letter, it's always done in a formal manner, which means it is in a full block format, so it will align on the left-hand side. First thing we have in a letter is where our letter is from. So I'm going to put in that it is coming from me. I'm going to put in that it has my address. Put in my city, my state, my zip code. Okay, now as you can see, as I'm drafting, it's putting space in between. Well, I don't want space in between every single line, but I only hit enter once. So why is it doing that? Because it is treating each of these sentences as its own paragraph. So the first thing we're going to come in and do, we're going to highlight this, and we will come in and remove space after paragraph. That's going to make our address block single spaced. So now I don't have to worry about that. So my address block is in there. If I was writing from a company, that would go in here too. But since I'm not writing on behalf of the company, I want it to just come from me personally. It's okay that it just has my first and last name, my street address, the city, the state, the zip code. Okay, next thing it's going to have is the date. Now I could go ahead and write today's date. You can see that Word likes to assist me with writing the date. And so I'd only have to get started and it fills in the rest for me. Another thing I could do, if this was a letter I was going to use as a template and keep over and over and over, something I could do is come in and insert the date and time, choose my format, and have it insert. So now every time I open up this letter, this document, it's going to update that date to the current day and time. Now that's great as long as I want to send a document that is for the current date. Now if I'm wanting to send something and I don't want the date to change every time I open my document, don't use the insert date and time field. Just type out the date that you want it to be for. So very rarely do I insert the date and time using that date and time field. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the address for who we're writing to. So I'm going to write this letter to an attorney friend of mine. So I'll put in her name and her title, because we always treat attorneys that we are writing to with as much prestige and honor as we can. So they've worked hard to earn that title. We're going to include that title when we write to them because we want to impress her. We want her to hire us for a job. So if I don't give her kind of the accolades that she's due, she isn't going to want to hire me. So then we'll put in the firm that she works at. She works at Miles and Hatcher, LLP. And we're going to put in the street address for where she belongs and also the suite that her office is at, followed by the city, the state, the zip code. Now in her case, we happen to know the zip code +4 is what it's called. It's just more a detailed version of a zip code. Not important that you know the +4. We could just leave this as city, state, and zip code. Okay, now we are ready to start our letter. So it's a formal letter, right? So we will not start it like we would an email address. We wouldn't say, hey, we wouldn't say howdy, we wouldn't say hello. Nope, it will be very formal. You will write dear. You will use their title. Now, title doesn't mean CEO or attorney or lawyer or counselor. It means Mr., Miss, or if you want to be kind of gender neutral, you could go with the new mix. So we could put Dear Mick Smile. So sometimes you don't know if you're writing to a woman or a man. So using mix would be appropriate in that type of a situation. So now we're okay to write our letter. So I can write in my letter. Here's what I'm doing. I want it to look good, right? So I'm going to put it into paragraphs. I'm going to space my paragraphs appropriately. I'm going to make sure there's no misspelled words. I'm going to make sure my abbreviations are correct. Use my writing to test and see what my spelling is. I'm going to lay out my page so it's easy to read. Now remember, this is a formal letter. We are writing to someone for a business purpose. This is not a personal correspondence, which means formal writing, everything aligns on the left-hand side. So now that I have everything I'm going to write, now I need a closing. I'm not going to put, cordially yours. That's way too personal. Nope, nope, nope. What I'm going to do is just a simple sincerely. I'm then going to leave 4 blank lines. And then I'm going to write my name. I could use my title if I have a title. If you were writing this for an attorney, you would put Esquire afterwards. I'm going to leave it with my doctorate designations. So 1, 2, 3. Need one more line. 1, 2, 3, 4 blank lines. This space between sincerely and the printed name is so that once I print this document, I can sign it and apply my signature, a wet ink signature with a pen, to my document before I send it. Okay, so that is all we need to know to write a formal letter. So let's look at some features again, just to double check. Now that you've finished your writing, what do we need to have? First thing is our address goes at the top, followed by a blank line, followed by the date, followed by a blank line, followed by the address for the person we are writing to. So that includes the person's name, the person's place of business, their street address, their office number, if it has one. Maybe they own the whole building, then there won't be an office number. Their city, the state, the zip code. Now, with a state, we could type out the name of the state. But notice in this address block, I used the postal abbreviation. And in this address block, I wrote it out. Either way is fine. The only thing that's not okay is the inconsistency. Pick a method and stick with it. So if this one you're going to use abbreviations, then use abbreviations in this one. Or if this one you're going to write out, then write it out in this address as well. The important thing is that you be consistent. So I like the postal abbreviation, so I'm going to stick with the postal abbreviation and make sure I have a postal abbreviation in both address blocks. Okay, then remember we have a blank line. Then we have our greeting line. Our greeting is always dear, title, last name. We don't use their first name when we are greeting them because we're using the title instead. Now, being that I know who this person is, I know that it's a woman and I can use the Miss. We wouldn't use Mrs. Mrs. means we're talking to the wife of this person. So when we see Mr. and Mrs., you'd see it'd be the man and the wife of that name. So since I'm addressing a female by herself, it is usually always written as a miss. So I'm going to write that. Make sure I'm including punctuation after my greeting line. Now I can write my letter, making sure each of my paragraphs are left aligned, that there is one blank line in between. The rule is that if it's always double whatever your line in the paragraph is. So since my paragraphs are single spaced, I would do a double space between paragraphs. Now if my letter was double spaced, then I would put more space in between my paragraphs so that it's easy to tell where my paragraphs start and stop. So now you can see my space is a little bit more than just one space. If you look at my cursor height, you can see there's almost 2 cursor heights in between my paragraphs. But we don't want to do that. So we're just going to stick with single space. I like single space. I think it's easy to read. So we'll turn our paragraphs back into single space. Okay, so I'm checking that I have a blank space between my paragraphs. I'm making sure the space between my greeting and my first paragraph is the same as the space between my first paragraph and my second paragraph, and second and third, and also between my last paragraph and my closing line. The closing line, the greeting line, are paragraphs. So really, my greeting line is my first paragraph. My closing sentence is really my final paragraph. And then I'm leaving 4 blank spaces, and I'm typing the name of the person who is writing this letter. So if I'm working in my paralegal job, I'm going to write this for the attorney that I'm drafting this for. Or if it's coming from me, then I'm going to put my name. The name here at the top should match the name of the signature. So if I'm making this for my attorney, it is not going to have my name at the top. It is going to have my attorney's name at the top, their address, which is probably our law firm office address. That way, bottom signature matches the address of who it's from. Okay, well now you know everything you need to do your business letter assignment. It should look something very similar to this. You go ahead and create any date you want. I don't care what date it is posted as. I don't care who you're writing to. You can write this to a make-believe person. You can write it to an attorney that you know. You can write it to me if you feel like doing so. Just remember, when you go to address it, you don't write it as to whom it may concern. Nope. We know that we are writing to this attorney. We need to address that attorney here in the greeting line. Okay, have fun with your assignment and can't wait to see how your letters turn out.